before we get to Fans Forum, we got Hacksaw's headlines, late-breaking stories.
Yeah, this is the high-speed sports wire. And, you know, and I'll tell you what, Leo, I remember when you were talking about the high-speed sports wire on the radio, I always had this image of like a ticker tape, like in the back room at 690.
In the newsroom. Oh, yeah, it was. And then it became computerized, and I could sit at the console doing the talk show, doing this, and it really did exist.
Oh, really did?
Okay. Oh, hell yes. Okay, storylines. Memorial Day weekend, Indy500, 108th run at the old Brickyard. We saw qualifying last week while you were drinking beer in Ireland. I couldn't believe it was 133 degrees track temperature as they were trying to qualify on Sunday. I mean, it's amazing. And guys are running laps. Think about how hot that is, how slippery that is. And guys are running laps at 234. And the qualifying times was 232.5. So Indy 500 is Sunday. However, they are talking 90% chance of thunderstorms. Cloud cover, which means the track will probably be cooler. But I don't know if they're going to get the race in. I mean, you can't run in rain in IndyCar. And if you get thunderstorms, then you have to dry the track. You might be sitting there all day in rain delays with the cars on pit row. I don't know whether or not they're going to be able to get this thing off on Sunday or whether it's going to get flipped into Monday, Memorial Day. Team Penske, all their guys are on the front line, led by Scotty McLaughlin, who had the best lap of all, best qualifying time, Will Power, former champion. And then the third guy, Joseph Newgarden, former 500 champion. The most intriguing thing is what happens inside on the row 2. Alex Rossi, who's won the 500 out of Italy, phenomenal speed guy. And right next to him is the NASCAR rookie. And this is, to me, is the storyline for what we saw in the month of May. Kyle Larson is doing a double. He is going to run the Indy 500. He qualified to start in the inside second row, 5th slot on the grid. He ran 232.5 and qualified his first time ever in an Indy car.
Wow.
It's a hell of a driver.
Mm-hmm.
And then beyond that, 3rd, 4th, 5th row, the Mexican Pato Award, who's run really well at Indy the last couple of years. Rinus VK from the Netherlands. He flies, but he crashes a lot. Those are other names. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. NASCAR, the good old boys.
Yeehaw.
Yeah, hee-haw is right. Lucky there wasn't a monkey wrench in that car. Big fight after the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, small track in North Carolina last Sunday night. There was a crash early on. Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse were swapping paint and put them both into the wall, knocked them out of the lead. Stenhouse wrecked his car, drove his car into the pits. He parked it in Kyle Busch's stall. Now, Busch's car was damaged too. So Busch comes into the pits. And Stenhouse, as he gets out of the car, Stenhouse starts arguing with him and throws punches at him. And Stenhouse got fined $75,000, most ever by NASCAR towards a driver.
Wow.
So he hit him with punches. Lucky there wasn't a monkey wrench in Stenhouse's car. Might have hit him with that. Formula One, 3rd series right now. They're running the Grand Prix of Monaco this weekend. Lewis Hamilton, legendary. He's got 99 career wins. Has not run a race in 3 years running for Mercedes. He is going to exit Mercedes, and he is jumping to Ferrari next year. Lewis Hamilton in Monaco yesterday said, this team is in no man's land. This team is lost. He's talking about his own team that he won all these races with. He says, we can't figure out downforce. We can't figure out horsepower. How can that be? And of course, he's going to exit at the end of the season. And I mean, he's been a great driver, but holy cow, is he unhappy right now. We talked about Formula One and Michael Andretti. This is really an intriguing story. Andretti, of course, was snubbed in his attempt. He filed a $250 million application with F1 to get a team. They turned him down. The teams in Europe say, we don't want another American. They'd be cutting up the pie even more, which I think is stupid because Formula One wants to come here and expand. You need an American. Anyhow, Michael Andretti, weeks ago we talked about, is building a factory at Silverstone in London on that track to develop chassis and engines. Cadillac is going to be the engine supplier. He just hired the executive vice president of F1. His name is Peter Simons. Peter Simons knows everything about engines and downforce. He's like their spec director. He's going to go to work for Andretti. He built 4 different championship teams in F1. Wow. So there's no doubt Michael Andretti is really serious about this. He just stole the best guy in Europe to build his cars. And then soccer. They're about to move into the month of June. They're about to begin the friendlies before Copa America begins. Team USA's coach Greg Berhalter just announced his 29-man roster. They are loaded as they get ready for Copa America, which is the scene setter, obviously, for the Olympics and then the next World Cup. Pulisic, Reyna, TJ Adams, Weston McKennie, Fo Balogun, the young guy they developed last year. They are so loaded with goal scorers. Now they got to play together. They're going to obviously have to play Berhalter's system. But I looked at the makeup of the roster, and they got 2 veteran goaltenders from MLS and 1 from Europe. I said, "Holy cow, this is a really good team." And they've been obviously rebuilding. And Pulisic was item 1, and now they got all these young guys around them. So it'll be fun. They're going to play Colombia and Mexico in friendlies first or second week of June. So we'll get a much better gauge as to how this edition of Berhalter soccer can compete with all these young guys. And I think Reyna's a star in the making. I think Balogun's amazing. And you got Pulisic there, plus the other veterans have already been on a World Cup roster. So I'm kind of fascinated. So, John, that's the update for all the other topics on the table. We're talking auto racing and we're talking corner kicks.
Yeah, a lot of topics on the table. Great hearing about USA Soccer. That's a lot of fun to follow. You know, the Indy 500, they've been having terrible weather through the Midwest, tornadoes ripping through. Yep. I wonder imagine if a tornado went through the Indianapolis area. I mean, that could happen.
They do have tornadoes in central Indiana and southern Indiana. Indianapolis is a little bit higher. I don't know that I recall tornadoes blowing through Indianapolis, but the weather that we have, anything is humanly possible. But it's too bad because they said it midweek, 50% chance of thunderstorms. They'd come and go. But now they're saying 90%. And that track gets wet. It takes forever to dry that track. And then if the storms keep rolling through, you're going to have a problem. So this might be a Monday race rather than a Sunday race, but I'll be watching to see if there is a green flag.
Oh, yeah. I love all the pageantry. I'm looking forward to the race, but it's not just the race. I mean, it's a big party in Indianapolis the whole weekend. So
you stood up in front of the TV. I know you did. You and Jim Neighbors used to sing Back Home in Indiana.
Yeehaw.
Oh, yeah. It's so cool. I mean, it's like the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
You know, they say, my old Kentucky home. I mean, what they did with Jim Neighbors, that gave it a signature to the event. And the event is just, I've interviewed all those drivers and the courage it takes. And when I was doing sports talk on 690 and 1090, I would interview the first 2 rows. I chased those guys down and I did interviews with the pole sitter awesome. And the rookies. And I loved IndyCar racing. I think the fans on I was the only one that did any of that. But so I had a locked in market, but those are unique people. Rick Mears, and I had a friend in Phoenix, Tom Sneva. He was the first one that went 200. First one. And these guys are doing 235 and 240 on the straightaways now trying to qualify. And people said, Tom, and they called him a gas man. I said, nobody will ever do more than 200. Well, technology changed all that.
Well, the driver you say that's going to do the doubleheader thing, what's the logistics of that? Like the time of the race in Indianapolis, and then that night he's like flying to North Carolina.
Yeah,
for
he
another
flies
race?
from Charlotte. They have helicopters set. He's about the 3rd or 4th guy that's attempted to do it. Now, none of the other guys. Tony Stewart was the marquee name that did it, back on. None of those other guys have done really well in the 500, nor in the 600. But it's novel. But for Kyle Larson to get into an Indy car for the first time in the month of May after limited testing in the off season, and to do what he did to start 5th on the grid out of 33, that's amazing.
That is amazing. Yeah, yeah.
And those guys fly. It's just amazing. So I enjoyed it. I developed a long friendship with Rick Mears and obviously the gas man, Tom Sneva, and Emerson Fittipaldi was just a classy gentleman. And the ornery AJ Foyt. What the hell you want me to do a talk show for? Okay, let's do it. You got 8 minutes. So, I mean, I interviewed all those guys. And one of my good friends was Bobby Rahal, who won the 500 in 1985 and then failed to make the race the next year because he had engine problems. Failed to make the race.
Wow. And
that's so devastating because everything is tied into sponsorship. And if you don't make the race, your sponsorship dollars dry up. And half the teams in the IndyCar circuit, they're not the Andrettis or the Penske's of the world that have got wealth. They're living kind of race to race.
Well, that's like Pato Award. He's
Exactly.
from Mexico, and I remember he was like a low budget entrant.
Yeah, and he's moved around different teams, but he's a good driver.
Right.
But there's so many things going to happen. Engine breaks, tires, bad pit stop, if you crash. So it's a good race. If you've never sampled the Indy 500, do it on Sunday. Just the pageantry is back home in Indiana with Jim Neighbors. It's just so cool. Okay, our podcast is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores in San Diego to serve you. You got projects, pay a visit, take a walk through everything Dixieline's got to offer. And by North County Eye Center. People, we're all going to need help with our eyes sometime. When that time comes, even if it's just to set up an appointment to get a vision test, call them and make sure you tell them. Thanks for being part of Hacksaw's podcast team, North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido.